Welcome back to the Funding Blueprint, the podcast where we unpack what it really takes to build, fund, and scale today's most ambitious startups. I'm your host, Cece Nahaman, and today we're diving into one of the most powerful and often misunderstood tools in a founder's arsenal, cold email. My guest today is Pranam Lipinski, a founder who's built an entire seven-figure business off the back of cold email. He's booked over 10,000 meetings, landed Fortune 500 CEOs and billionaires, helped clients close major deals, and even raised capital, all from the inbox. Today, his agency sends over 1 million emails a month for sales and marketing leaders at unicorn startups, Fortune 500s, and high-growth companies, with a focus on one thing: inbox-first deliverability and real results. If you want to learn how to stand out in a crowded inbox, scale your outreach without sounding spammy, and use email to grow your business, this is the conversation that you've been waiting for. Let's get into it. Pranam, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Cece. Thanks for the kind introduction, and looking forward to it.
Of course, me as well. So let's get right into it. When people think of cold email, they imagine spammy messages or generic pitches that get ignored. But you've built an entire business proving the opposite. Whether it's raising capital, landing high-profile clients, or booking thousands of meetings, cold outreach has been your engine. So let's start at the top. Like I've said, you've landed meetings with Fortune 500 CEOs, investors, even billionaires. What makes a cold email stand out at that level, and what are those messaging strategies that you find most effective?
Yeah, it's a great question because it comes down to think about it like you were at a networking conference or something and you wanted someone to talk to you that might be above your normal, social network. The thing that I focused on when I was engaging with Fortune 500 CEOs, billionaires, etc., to get them to reply to me, it's just like if I was at an event, I would go up to them and I would ask them something so that, everybody wants to hear themselves talk, they've got good insights. And that's what I did. I emailed a lot of these people and asked them for advice on my startup. So I asked them for their tell me about, what you think about what I'm doing, give me some advice, some feedback. And it sounds basic, but when it comes to emailing, it's really important that we understand that human dynamic, because we are, in the end, just reaching out to people who have the same behavioral reactions as we see in the real world. It's just that we kind of forget that is how we would approach somebody in a conference or a networking group. And we wouldn't necessarily just start pitching right away. Here's what I do. Here's how I do it. So then there's been studies at Harvard that have done, if you want to sound smart, ask for advice. There's a lot of data around how people perceive you when you ask for advice. And so that's what I did to get these, Fortune 500 CEOs and billionaires. And then they would become customers of my startup because they were so interested in what I was doing and my approach. And then the other side of it is just understanding when you do get a chance to ask for this advice, you still want to pitch something. And let's say if you wanted to pitch in general on an email, the way that I always share it, and it's a very basic 5-step process, but if you're going to pitch anything, if you're just going to do a sales pitch type of email, purpose, number 1, what's the purpose? Number 2 is problem. What's the problem you're addressing? Number 3 is purpose, problem, solution. So solution is number 3. Like, here's my solution to the problem. And then social proof. Here's how we've helped others solve it. And then the last thing is ask. So PPSPA, purpose, problem, solution, proof, ask, is the way that I would suggest from a pitch standpoint you go about it, which, I would say your number 1 would be asking for advice. And then if you want, you can go into the pitch side.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. So once you've grabbed their attention, which is no small feat, the next challenge is keeping it, especially when you're reaching out to someone who gets hundreds of pitches a week. You need to show credibility, but you've only got a few lines to do it. which brings me to my next question. When you're emailing a C-suite exec or a VC, how do you balance being concise with building credibility?
By following that specific roadmap of things, like really understanding, people need to know right away what it's about. And so if you're reaching out, you have to have that clear purpose. And then you do need to touch upon a problem that it addresses, just so you catch the attention. You have to sell pain first, then the solution. If you go the opposite way, it doesn't register with somebody because they don't have a reason to listen. So having that clear purpose and then having a clear pain or problem that you're addressing, then sharing with them again what your solution is. And then, as I mentioned, having that proof of here's how I've done it before, and then having a clear ask. That's the concise way to go about it. And it's really just about getting anybody interested in whatever you want to pitch. If you want to pitch a restaurant, that you want your friends to go to and they want to go somewhere else, you could still pitch in that way and it's going to register, versus if you pitch out of order or in a way they don't have reasons or context, it's tougher for it to land.
Definitely. I am curious, what do you use or what have you found as a good subject line that really catches the attention in someone's inbox?
So nowadays with AI, if possible, you do want every subject line to be slightly different. So if you can generate, using different AI tools, every single email you send out, have it summarize the email in a 4 or 5 word subject line and have their name in that subject line as well. So for example, it'd be like CC's podcasting success today would be like a subject line I might send to you. And I would have an AI prompt that would write that for, thousands of rows and in a spreadsheet at a time so that I don't have to manually do it. The other funny thing is we found that the subject line that says hi first name, that ends up being the most generic successful subject line that we found. So if you want to go generic, hi first name, hi CC, just that we found is extremely good for a subject line getting opens and also replies.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of actually brings me to a next topic. These days everyone is using AI to scale their personalization, like you said, using that to create the subject lines. But you want to do that without sounding robotic. That's an art in itself. So how do you approach personalization but at a scale, especially like we said with AI now in the mix, without losing authenticity?
So we use a tool called Clay. It's a very popular business development tool or, go-to-market tool. And Clay gives us the chance to do thousands of rows in a spreadsheet, in 5 minutes by calling in the right AI model to write for every single row in the spreadsheet based on our prompt for a subject line and also the whole email. But the other key is that we do use the right model as well. So Claude 3.5 or 3.7 Sonnet, they're the best at creative writing, and they have Claude has the most creative, human sounding type of AI that you'll find. So using the right model is key. And then we do also have some kind of human behavioral tendencies that we will try to replicate in our prompt. When we tell Claude, we say maintain an average sentence length of paragraph length of 2.1 sentences, try to have a 38% variance between, certain transitions of sentences. Like, these are things that spam detectors will not pick up on. And so you want to be able to have this humanizer, we call it, on top of the copy and on top of the subject lines.
Yeah, that's great and very smart. You want to use AI as a tool, not let it use you. So I think that's great.
Exactly.
So the personalization, next steps might get your email opened, maybe even clicked on, but at the end of the day, opens don't pay the bills. For founders and teams investing in cold outreach, the real goal is getting the conversations on the calendar and moving some deals forward. So, what have you found is the key to turning opens and clicks into actual conversations? Is it that kind of call to action when you're asking for them for advice? Is that something that they then want to, move forward and talk about?
You're 100% right and that's why even as a basic thing, you shouldn't track opens because it adds one little tracking method on top of your email that makes your email a little bit harder to get in the inbox because spam detectors can tell you're probably a marketer if you're tracking your opens. So that's one thing, you don't want to do. And then clicks, you don't want to track those either. You really want to keep it plain text and then keep it very clear on what you're asking. So at the end of the day, the one metric you should judge all of your email sending by is positive replies. How many positive replies are you getting per 100, per 1,000? And as an industry benchmark, you're doing extremely well if you get one positive reply for every 300 emails you send. You're doing pretty good if you get one positive reply for every 1,000 emails you send. And by emails, I mean cold emails, like where you don't know the person and you're just asking, from a cold standpoint. And then if you're doing poorly, anything over 1,000, if it's over 1,000 emails per positive reply, then you really should change something up.
Okay, so scaling and outreach is one thing, but scaling operations behind the scenes is a whole different challenge, right? When you're managing multiple clients, campaigns, and inboxes at once, keeping things personalized and high quality can start to feel kind of like a juggling act. So this brings me to my next question. How do you manage multiple clients and inboxes while keeping that quality and personalization intact?
Well, so much of it is hiring, of course. We have a team of 15 that is in our inboxes and also on our sending side, launching campaigns. But using the right tools, of course, and technologies. If you can use tools that are built for cold email or built for AI personalization, that's going to be a huge help in you trying to cobble, your own homemade tools together. So I would suggest looking into tools like instantly.ai. It's pretty much cold emailing in a box. And then Clay, which is like a spreadsheet that allows you to pull in different AI models to write personalization at scale instead of just one email by one email, one by one. So using the right tools is key. And then, of course, having people that you rely on and trust to handle, the replies and everything else. So, yeah, the right tools are the right team.
Awesome. And what would your advice be, do you think, for someone that's just starting out? They don't really have the team. Do you think it's solely reliant on the tools, or do you think it's reliant on who they are, contacting in these cold emails? Like, is that an important factor for someone that's just starting out?
Yeah, we had to start at zero as well. And in the beginning, being able to learn how people reply to your copy, what are the templates that you can build for yourself. I would just say, don't try to not do anything that is one-off. Like, try to never do something so it's done just once. Always try to make it so that if you do it, you can then build it into a system so that it's good enough to be replicated going forward. So that means reply templates, so that everybody that says unsubscribe me or remove me, you have a common template that you can just automatically send off to them quickly versus you having to type every reply. Basics like that. And then as you see more types of replies, people that are asking for more information, people that are interested in a meeting, having templates for that is also very helpful. So I think, the basics is trying to create repeatable systems right from the start and not do things that are just one-off solutions.
Yeah, definitely. So much of what we've talked about, the personalization, the credibility, the scaling depends on having, like you said, those strong systems in place. But even with the right tools, that human element behind those systems can't be overlooked. When you're running multiple campaigns across multiple accounts, the pressure can add up fast. And for a lot of founders or operators, especially in those early stage teams, outbound becomes a source of constant stress, something they may dread rather than a channel that they feel confident about.
Yeah.
And that kind of pressure, it's not just unsustainable, it also starts to kind of erode the quality, the culture, and the momentum that one may have. So stepping back and thinking about how to build outreach systems that are actually healthy for a team is a crucial part of long-term success. So what advice do you have for any founder or operator out there that's trying to build their outbound systems without overwhelming themselves or their team or feeling that kind of burnout?
It's a great question because it's one of the many reasons that you would hire an agency or someone else to help with what you have to deal with outbound. So the most difficult part of dealing with outbound on your own is that you'll get out of, let's say you send 100 emails and let's say that you get 10 replies if you're doing well. One out of those 10 might be positive, as we talked about. But can you deal with 9 out of 10 people telling you that, they're not interested or your product sucks or your pitch sucks in a way that it doesn't get to you? Now, imagine if you were sending, 10,000 emails. You're going to deal with a lot more emails. You might deal with 1,000 of those replies. 900 of them are going to be negative. Can you handle 900 that are negative? It's hard to handle that without having it get to you a little bit. So, finding some way to shield that from you or hiring someone else to shield that is really important to not getting that burnt out feeling and that nobody wants to talk to you. So, if you can find a way to just focus on the positives while you handle everything else in the inbox, then you're going to be just fine. But if you deal with the negatives, either just make sure you diminish their value in your the way that you process them, or have someone else or some other tool automatically process them.
Yeah, for sure. Do you feel like there was a point in your journey where you felt discouraged or thrown off a bit?
Yeah, really. If you read 10 emails and 9 of them are negative,
yeah,
you automatically just start thinking that people don't like what you're pitching.
Yeah,
and that's a real thing. If you did that with anything you did, no matter what it is, if 9 out of 10 times you got rejected, it's hard to feel like you've got something good going on.
Yeah.
But in reality, it is this way for all marketing. Just think about how many times a Google ad gets served up to you and it's an impression, and how many times people see that and they look at it and they go, no, I'm not interested, or that looks like it's not good. That's not even a good ad. I wouldn't even click on that. Or that solution sounds like that solution's already made up. Why would a company even try to do it again? Like that's so. And then a billboard. If you drive by billboards, how many people look at that and say, you just got 1,000 drivers to go by. One of them might visit your website. The other 999, if they could communicate to you, they were basically just saying, I'm not interested. And then cold email, when you do hear, I'm not interested, it feels more direct, but it is the same with all marketing channels for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You got to knock on, what's the saying? You got to knock on 1,000,000 doors for just one to open.
Yeah. And you just got to keep knocking and,
keep knocking.
But in order to be in the right place at the right time, there's that old saying, you got to be in a lot of places a lot of times. And, you just got to keep sending a lot or trying a lot and being willing to get rejected a lot. And that's just part of it.
Yeah, 1000%. Well, unfortunately, that is a wrap on today's episode of the Funding Blueprint. And if you're walking away rethinking your cold outreach strategy, you're not alone. Huge thanks to Pranam for breaking down what it really takes to land meetings with top-tier investors and decision makers, personalize at a scale without sounding too robotic, and build systems that can drive serious results without burning yourself out or your team out. Whether you're raising your next round, chasing enterprise clients, or just trying to get your first yes from the right inbox, there's real power in doing cold email the right way. Pranam's story is proof of that. With the right message and the right mindset, email can open some very big doors. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a founder or operator who needs to hear this. Thanks for listening, and thank you again, Pranam, and we'll catch you next time on the Funding Blueprint.